Cosplayland, I am Alice and this is how I made my Tifa Beach cosplay. First thing to do is to gather the materials, and I've been collecting them since I first played Costa del Sol. And you know, there is a Costa del Sol in Spain, so yeah, I just had to do it. Anyway, I got the belt and the pants and also found this stripped silver and black fabric that was perfect for the shirt. A silver piece of ribbon and some Hawaiian colors because, yeah, let's be accurate to the game. That looks like fun. And I will also be using a wireless bra and some contrast black fabric. Initially I was going to be using this apron from the best beer in the world, which is of course the one from my city, but I had to settle with some cotton fabric from my stash. There is one more thing on my cosplay box. Of course, my contact lenses by Moko Queen. I have been wearing their contacts for about 2 years now and their quality never ceases to amaze me. They come in these blisters and you also get a chunky case where you can store them while you are not wearing them. I have a few new contacts for my next cosplays, but in these occasions I am going to be using these bright red contacts for Tifa. And getting them ready takes me less time than talking about how fast Moko Queen's shipping is or how comfortable they are. Contact lenses elevate your cosplay so much, I always think that they make the cosplay feel more special. If you want to see how these contact lenses look, make sure to stay to the end because I will be showing you. But now, let's go back to crafting. As always, I don't waste any time cutting my patterns and I like using weights and a rotary cutter to do so. And if you want to use the exact same pattern I am using, I will link it in the description. It comes in different sizes and it will definitely save you some time. Don't forget to add your seam allowances and your pattern is now ready to assemble. I went straight to sew my pieces together, but I soon realized my fabric was fraying like crazy. This is one of the times in which a wider seam allowance would have been handy, but I didn't realize how bad it was until I started using it. And you can tell how much I love Tifa because I went ahead and fixed my overlocker just for this project. Honestly, I haven't used my overlocker in over 6 months because the thread had tangled and I had to rethread the whole machine, and if you own an overlocker, you know how much of a pain that is. Here's a bit of footage of me struggling to untangle the knots and trying to thread the machine again, just for your amusement, because I wasn't amused at all. Eventually, I kind of fixed it, and it only took me about 40 minutes. Yeah, that's not too bad, is it? Then it was time to serge every single seam, every single one, and it basically took me the rest of the day. The good news is, at least my fabric won't fray anymore, or at least it will stay stable enough for me to just put the pieces together. Remember that you can use a zigzag stitch if you don't have an overlocker. A bunch of hours later, I am ready to go. Let's go back to assemble the pieces. The first piece was this fake lapel, and you will notice the pieces have a different angle. Simply start in the middle and pin one side at a time. It should be very easy to rotate your fabric so the pieces match again. I sewed and I ironed the seam allowance towards the center front, and it was time to attach the lining for this piece, which I am going to use only here because I don't think I really need it for the rest of the pieces. Once it was attached, I also ironed the pieces towards the back and the seam allowance inwards, and I top stitched them in place. Don't worry if this line isn't perfect, because we are going to cover the seam with a piece of ribbon. And you carefully have to sew both edges. Next part is the back, and it can be a bit tricky to sew because of its shape. Once again, if you start pinning at the middle, it should be more manageable. For best results, pin one side at a time. The good thing about using fabric is that you can shape it how you want, and even if it looks like it's not gonna fit, it actually will, so just take your time pinning those sides. And don't forget to cut a notch at the center of your pretty fabric to make it easier to sew. I usually do this at the sewing machine to make sure I cut just before the sewing line. It is much easier. Iron your seam allowances upwards and add a decorative stitch to the top. It will further reinforce your shirt and look more accurate to the in-game design. Now, the logical next part to sew is the yoke to the front, but I am not logical, and for some reason I thought it would be easier to sew the shoulder first to attach the collar. Spoiler alert, it wasn't, so in the sewing instructions I recommend you to do it the other way around. To assemble the collar, I added interfacing to one of the sides. Then, right sides together, I sew the top and the sides. I always find it easier to cut the seam allowance very short when I am doing a collar. Make sure to at least cut the corners so you get a crisp edge when you turn it. After I turned my fabric, I also ironed and top stitched the edge, stopping a bit before my seam allowance so the collar is easier to attach later on. With the interface side closer to the bodice, it was time to attach the collar. You know the drill. Find the center and pin outwards. In my case, I needed to leave some space for the seam allowance because I still have to attach the other side of the yoke. But if you do it like a normal person, you just need to try and reach the edge. I then folded the seam allowance on the other side inwards. I sew this by hand because I like doing it by hand. It is easier to control the fabric and it looks better. But hey, you can top stitch it with your machine if you want. And with the collar attached, you only need to iron it down to create this collar band effect. It looks so good, I love it. I actually thought it wasn't gonna work. Finally, I can now attach the yoke to the front. You see, we are getting there. And here's a word of advice. This edge often looks a bit wonky, so you can finish it by hand to make sure there are no gaps. More ironing and more top stitching, which was super helpful for my very temperamental fabric. And now I am only missing the sides. The bow underneath is quite easy to attach, because the edge is completely straight. And here's a bonus tip for the tie. You can fold it up on itself and sew the edges first. Then you simply have to turn them and hide the rest of the seam allowances inwards before you top stitching in place. Did I do it by hand? Of course I did. Finally, we can assemble the sleeves. I first finished the tops and I sew around them, leaving the tops open. And of course, as every other black part, I also top stitched them. I found 2 buttons on my stash that would be perfect for this cosplay, and I decided to paint them black just to match the reference a bit better. In the meantime, I assembled the rest of the sleeve to create a longer sleeve. I folded them in half to make a tube. And as I totally forgot to add the tabs before, I did it now. I just had to attach them to the inside of the sleeve. And don't worry, because they will be folded outwards later. Once again, all the seam allowances are hidden by folding them inwards and hand sewing the cuffs in place. Or top stitch them, I won't judge you. And as you can see, I did an amazing job showing you how I can sew out of frame. Hey, give me a break, I made this entire cosplay in just 3 days. Once you turn your fabric, it will look like this. Just make sure your cuffs are folded upwards along with the tabs. And now for the buttonholes, which are my kryptonite. I even bought a buttonhole opener because I want to practice this technique. If you're not good at that technique, you just keep trying until you get better, right? But I really suck at it. The buttonhole isn't even in the right place. My first attempt with the opener, nope, it didn't work. Let's get the heavy weaponry. A good old hammer, oh yeah, this is gonna work. Perfect! I sew my now black buttons in place and I simply had to insert them in the tabs. Oh look, it's me sewing! I'm almost in frame! Getting better! The final step was to attach the sleeves. I like placing the pieces the right way around and then turning the bodies inside out to find the notches, or guess them, because with all this busy fabric and all these lines and threads, it was a little bit difficult, but I got there eventually. In any case, one final top stitch and the shirt is done. Doesn't it look good? Time to go to the beach. Okay, maybe I was not in the sunny beaches of Costa del Sol, but rather the windy coast of the UK. But hey, you play with whichever cards you are given in Queensblood, don't you? If you have a keen eye, you will have noticed I did manage to break the shirt as my seams weren't as secure as I thought. These things happen, but I should be relatively easy to fix. Once again, thank you to Moco Queen for sponsoring my contact lenses. They totally make my cosplay so much more fun to wear. And if you want a pair like mine, I will be giving you a link in the description where you can get them. Also, thank you to the patrons. They always support me no matter how crazy the project, and they help me feed the cats. Thank you very much for watching, and I will be seeing you in the next adventure. Bye!